Okay, my friends, here it is. The video that is going to explain to you why I am not using manures this fall, and probably not for the next 3 to 5 years at all. So let me explain. Because now, here in Zone 5/6, Northern Indiana, it is the time of the year when we would be adding the manures. We would be adding the fertility for next year. Now, if you've watched my previous videos from several years in the past, I add manure right about now. Horse manure is the best. Horse manure is a really good quality fertilizer. Cow manure also has been a really good quality fertilizer, so has chicken manure. But here's the thing, and we're not using these anymore. Why? Now, to understand this, we have to go way back and we have to understand, why is manure good in the first place? Well, humans and animals and agriculture have existed in a harmony for thousands of years. Thousands of years, humans have been using manures from their animals to fertilize the land and produce food. And for eons of time immemorial before that, the natural cycle of things, the ultimate regenerator, we could say nature, the ultimate sustainable agriculturalist, used manures. Yes, when you think of the prairie lands where there would be herds of millions and millions of bison, and they'd be going grazing and eating the grasses and depositing the manure and the urine and stomping it into the ground. And then the land would look ravaged for a little time, but then it would recover and it would become luscious and beautiful, because the animal takes the cow or the horse, for example, will take the grass and mix it with the bacteria that is naturally present in its digestive tract, and then essentially ferment it in a way and expedite the decomposition process. What would normally take months in like a compost pile can happen within hours in the digestive tract of a ruminant animal. Now, this produces a very high quality fertilizer with everything that the plants need. And for thousands of years, we've been using this in the garden, okay? And for several years, I've been using this also in the garden. Now, we have come to a point in our civilization where this most sacred of fertilizers that humans have been using since the dawn of agriculture has now become toxic and poisonous. How is that possible? Because the current system of agriculture requires the massive use of industrial strength chemicals. You cannot farm in this way, in this industrial agriculture way, without these chemicals. These chemicals go by so many different names, and a very easy, quick search can yield you all kinds of results, such as 2,4-D, one of the most widely used selective herbicides, dicamba, often used along with 2,4-D, triclopyr, MCPP, clopyralid, aminopyralid, picloram, fluoroproxyl, all kinds of chemicals, and they remain persistent even after digestion from the animal, and even after hot composting. They still are not denatured even after being passed through the digestive tract of an animal and composting. So they will continue the effects persist in the substance long after they have it has stopped being used for its sole purpose in the field. So, what does this mean for us? This means that the most sacred of fertilizers, the manures, now can introduce all of those chemicals I just said into the garden. Now, I know this because many years ago, I had a large Ruth Stout garden where it was several feet of hay, actually. And I laid down several feet of the hay, and then I made piles of the horse manure. And for the first year, it worked wonderful. And then the second year, I brought in several trailer loads of a horse manure from a new place, a new equestrian boarding school, a boarding place. And it had been contaminated with the broadleaf herbicides. I didn't know anything about it at that time. This was maybe 7 years ago, and 6, 7 years ago, and nothing grew that year. It would grow for a little bit and then just turn yellow and die. I couldn't understand it. It was racking my brain all season long. But that's how I dug deep into the research and learned about all these very unfortunate chemicals. Now, just last year, even though I'm very particular about it, I still accidentally brought in a load of horse manure that had been contaminated. And so the things, I can tell right away now, when you see a little bit of growth and then it just yellows, or tiny little twisted leaves, or everything just looks sick and dying, only in the places where I use the contaminated manure. Yes. So for these reasons, I am absolutely done using the manures. All right. Horse manure is the most likely of all to contain this because horses, especially at like equestrian places, like a farm that boards horses, they like the really high quality hay that's a little more expensive because the horse is more picky than the cow with what it eats. And so the horse is most likely to contain these things. Also, the digestive system doesn't digest things as thoroughly as the cow does, but cow manure will still have this in it. Even if the farmer said, oh yeah, we don't spray nothing on there, they don't really know. I'm saying that this horse, the guy that kept the horses said, no, they don't spray anything. I was like, oh, okay. Yes, they do. You just aren't aware of it. And so, guys, for these reasons, you can only get burned so many times before you just say, all right, enough is enough. Now, chicken manure, if it's from a backyard garden that isn't using antibiotics, because yes, industrial chicken farming has tons of antibiotics in it now and other chemicals that persist in the soil. And when we grow organically, super organically, we are all about cultivating microbes. So anything that is destroying the microorganisms, such as antibiotics, biotica, we don't want that in our soils. And so the only time that chicken manure is going to be safe is if you're raising them yourself, or if you know that someone you trust isn't using any antibiotics or anything gnarly like that. Now, for me, I can't get that kind of quantity of chicken manure. So therefore, and I also, alpaca and goat and sheep and rabbit, all of those can also be really good so long as they are not eating contaminated hay. This is very important. That can also be toxic if they're eating the contaminated hay. Now, many people will say, well, how can I tell if it's contaminated? How can I tell if the manure is contaminated? There's several tests you can do, but I've found that that's not even a foolproof way. I used to think that was a foolproof way. Well, plant some beans and some peas and some radishes into the manure, and see, and that will let you know. It's tricky, guys. It's so tricky. I'm telling you that even that is not a dead-on accurate test. It's so unfortunate that this source has been contaminated to this point now. So for all of those reasons, I'm not using it anymore. In the garden renovation, I'm not going to be filling these beds with manure. Several years ago, I used to be doing that. In the fall, you add manure, just like nature does. You add manures and things in the fall, but we're done with that, okay? So we're not adding manure in the fall. Now, when will I start using manures again? It will be only when we get the land and we are raising the animals. If you are raising the animals, or someone you absolutely trust for sure, and their food, okay? So if you're raising the animals and their food and you know everything is totally clean, then yes, manure cannot be beat. It's one of the finest fertilizers that you can possibly use. I want to be very clear on that. But unless you're raising the animals and their feed yourself, I wouldn't risk it. I would hardly risk it anymore. It's unfortunate, but you can only get burned so many times before you get a little bit chafed. So there you go, guys. There was my rant about that. That's why you're not going to see how to use manures this fall, because I'm not using no manures this fall, or at least for the next 3 to 5 years, because that's how much longer we're going to be here in this plot before we get the land. Once we get the land, everything's going to change. It's all going to be right there. Biodynamic type, everything, we're growing everything, all the feed for the animals, all of it's going to be there. And we'll have all different kinds of new videos and stuff. But until that time, we are not getting burned again. Burn me once? Okay, whatever. Burn me twice, 3 times, forget about it, okay? So, guys, let me know in the comments your experience. Have you been burned by the manures? Many people don't even realize they've been burned by them. They just think that, well, this was a terrible year. Nothing grew. Everything was really sickly looking. Well, they don't realize they got some contaminated manures. It's so prevalent, these sickening chemicals, because in this system, you can't farm without them. So, guys, let us know your experience in the comments and what have you done for it. I mean, this stuff lasts for years in the soil, 3 to 5 years before it breaks down. It almost seems intentional. It's kind of crazy. So let me know your thoughts. I'll see you guys right here every Saturday at 12 noon Eastern time for the live Q&A. Channel memberships are here, guys. It's only $3 a month. I would appreciate everybody signing up so that we can get YouTube off my back about trying to get members. So let us get some members. So thank you to everybody who has signed up, and we will see you guys next time.